People of the verse, hello, welcome to the channel. It's the Eradicator, and it looks like we are going to have a review of some tech. I love it when Star Citizen, Inside Star Citizen, Jared bring us to you some of the tech that they are working on. That's the type of episode that I want to see. That I've signed up for many years ago when we had those pledge goals of the regular updates of what the devs are working on. And well, let's see if this episode lives up to our expectations. Stuff, no fluff. Let's go. Let's get ready right now.
In Star Citizen, we have many of these huge, intricate planets. And the way that we've been able...
Well, many... come on. I think that the guy here is getting carried away. Quite many planets. How many planets do we have in Star Citizen right now? 3, right? Hurston, Microtech, and ArcCorp. That's basically it. So not many. Not yet. One day, when we're looking at this episode, many years in the future, perhaps. But as of right now, that's not true.
Able to do that is instead of
many
storing
planned,
each
yes.
vertice of the planet like you would in a traditional level editor, we store height maps and other data about the planet and then build chunks of the planet around the player. But it did introduce the problem of us not being able to edit individual vertices of the terrain. That is where the terrain modification system comes in.
Yes, terrain modification. One of the key part, by the way, any city builder game, any godlike type of game where you decide to edit the terrain and the environment. This is very important. Hey, Robert Ra, how are you doing? Maybe they have many only. You get to see a few. Yeah, only us, right? They're in the work for Squadron 24. I've heard this game, Robert, has a lot of names. Squadron 52, Squadron 54, Squadron 24. Yeah. All right, River Deep Mountain.
So the terrain
High.
modification system works by placing modifiers across the planet, and when we build each chunk of the terrain, we check to see if any of the vertices intercept one of our bounding boxes, and if we do, that modifier applies a function to the Z coordinate of that vertex to offset it to a specific place that we choose. So for example, we've got here a smoothing area. We can move this around. We can see that it is smoothing out the ground. We can raise it or lower it. We can change its size.
Very nice. This is exactly... I don't know who has played City Skylines here in or any type of other I think it also in Cities XL you can do that as well, right? This is exactly what you can do in those games where you can modify the terrain, except that here it's not a game, it's actually the Star engine, right? The engine that they're using to build Star Citizen. Very interesting, and it's of course a must, right? If you want to be custom making some terrain instead of relying on a procedurally generated technology. Dreadful Soul says, maybe Squadron 14 is a good excuse for things and we will just wait and see. If the dev process goes anything like Star Citizen, half of what they showed us, AR isn't working. All right, well, that's your opinion, Dreadful Soul. And, that's why I like to do those live streams. Everyone here is welcome to share their opinion. As long as everybody remains respectful, that's totally okay. As I think that at this stage of the project, we still don't know what the future holds for us. So anything goes, right?
And so on. And here I've got a crater which we could flip and turn into a push-pull. We could change the scale and so on.
Classic terrain
that's all
modification technology here.
intercepting the mesh building system and applying offsets based on a function to each vertex within that box. We can use this on any scale we like. So from a very small scale like this to a much bigger scale like this over here. So if I decide I want to place my outpost over here, the first thing I do is I
Oh yes, look at that. We're gonna have outpost placings.
Smoothing area down. I integrate that into the terrain so that it looks good. I can play with all the different settings to tweak the roll off and the radius of the smoothing area.
So far, it really looks familiar. This is exactly like in City Skylines.
And then I can go in and I can put my outpost down.
Oh, just like that! Just like that! Oh my, did you see that? This is so quick! Just like that, boom! Let's look at 2 seconds! 2 seconds. In 2 seconds, the outpost is there. That is how quick now in Star Citizen in 2021 it is to place an outpost on a moon. Just like that. Boom. Hey, so now I don't want to see on the roadmap in the future placing the outpost on the various moons, like that should not be an item in the roadmap anymore, because it literally takes 1 second to place an outpost on on the terrain. Let's look at that again. Let's look at that again. How he does that here.
My outpost down.
Boom! Just like that.
Come in very flat. There's no clipping with the terrain, and it all looks very natural and embedded instead of kind of like.
Yes, it's true. There is no clipping. Look at that. This outpost here is not even floating in the air. It is very well placed in the terrain indeed. No, a little bit of clipping. See, there's a tree here. There's a tree in the middle of that pad. That tree is going to have to go, but I'm pretty sure that again is just going to take a mere minutes for the devs to figure this out, right? And no rocks indeed. Yeah, where are the damn rocks, right? They're not here at all. So absolutely, you're right, Arcadel KB says. Miral Gruffers is here too. We got a lot of people here with me on the chat. That is awesome. For those of you who are watching on YouTube and don't know, yes, I am doing this live on live stream first, and then it will be on a regular video format on YouTube further down the line. Arcade Alchemist says he wants us to have the ability to punch trees and get wood. Yeah, well, why not, Arcade Alchemist? But what are you going to do with that wood, right? Before crafting, perhaps? I don't think this is going to come anytime soon further down the line, but who knows, right? Maybe some people will want to. We'll have some Star Citizen Amish people, maybe, who will have to need that wood to get warm, because we also have that survival mechanics in Star Citizen as well. Why not? Why not? And eventually, at some point, right, the sky is going to be the limit, I suppose.
Terrain clipping over the sides of the landing pads. So we can integrate our smoothing areas even more in with the terrain by using a noisy edge instead of just having a perfectly spherical one. So this smoothing area here has a noise function applied to its radius, so we get this kind of like crinkly effect. And when I embed that into the ground, we don't see an obvious circle around where our outpost is. Instead, we get more natural looking crinkle around the edge of our smoothing area.
Okay, very nice.
The reason that we have both of these modifiers is sometimes you want to make it clear that humanity has come and shaped the terrain to be a certain way, and sometimes you just want the convenience of flat ground without it looking like it's been bulldozed by a great big group of JCBs.
Yeah, let's look in real life. Sometimes terrain just happens to be flat. Maybe there used to be a lake or a sea that flattened everything, and then that water goes away, and then boom, you get some flat terrain. We've all seen that in real life as well, right? So it makes sense that sometimes on the planets as well, we're going to have some of that flat terrain, absolutely.
So using the same modification system, we can actually add water meshes to the vertexes.
So here in the chat, Clayton HD is asking a very interesting question. Is water swimmable right now in the verse, or is it instant death? It's a mix of both. I think that you can walk until your waist or something, and then at some point when you are too deep in the water, then it is instant death. Yeah, no swim, but it is something that the devs are working on, and it will be eventually coming up in the future, right?
The first thing I did on this was a way to place river paths, because you can't start modifying the terrain before you know where the water's going to flow.
Okay, river
so
path.
I've got this river placement tool here, where we're going to be able to essentially start off by placing...
Okay, so he already has an entire tool here for rivers, which is great, by the way, because rivers have been a feature that we, the backer, have been asking for quite some time in the verse, right? We say, hey, those planets are nice, but they're a little bit dead, there's not much life around there on those planets, and one of the bringers of life, in at least here on Earth, are those rivers. They bring water, they bring ecosystems, animals, right? And they're going to be a very important part in the future when we're going to have more and more and more planets with eventually ecosystems, living, breathing animals in the verse. Creatures. Those creatures are going to need to drink water. Those creatures who will be thirsty and need to drink water are not going to be buying a Vesta bottle of water at your regular rest stop. No, that's not how they're going to get water. They're going to need to get that water at the rivers, and that's why they're creating those tools, because again, it is going to be one of the many different stepping stones that are going to lead to the implementation of wildlife in the verse.
A spring or somewhere where the water might come out of the ground. So I'm going to place that here. And you can see that it automatically starts working out.
Oh yeah, Arcane Alchemist, absolutely. This is not just going to be for water as well. We can definitely have lava rivers too. Oh yeah.
Path of where the water would flow. Now it does this in steps. It looks at the direction that the water is coming from. It takes a step in that direction and works out an arc of points. And then it chooses the point on that arc that is the lowest, moves there, and then continues on to the next step until you get this nice flowing path.
Okay.
Now,
yeah, very nice indeed. This is looking like how a river should flow. What do you guys think?
Over here, we've got a white dot, and that is because the lowest point on the arc was in fact higher than the water started with. And if you look at a river, you'll notice water doesn't travel up. So here...
Well, that's where you're gonna have a lake, right? A little lake, a little pond, and then the water goes away.
Yeah, the point is white because we're going to have to erode down the path under here for the water to have travelled.
So they're doing it manually.
Up on the terrain. So once we're happy with...
Okay, but what... You don't have to... I mean, they could do it manually, sure, but can you imagine? Those planets are huge. If they are going to place to randomly generate in the future, I suppose that's what is going to happen, right? In the future, I suppose that they're not going to manually place those rivers. I mean, that we're talking about potentially hundreds of rivers, right? So that doesn't make any sense. Now, I think that they're creating the tool so that in the future, they will be able to procedurally create those rivers when planets are being created as well. Yeah, they won't do it manually, says Robert. I don't know why your message is being hidden, Robert. Why is manually being censored by YouTube? I have no idea. Maybe the algorithm is a little bit of a pervert. Maybe, I don't know. Why is it? Let me show this here. Boom. There you go, shown, right? Shouldn't be hidden, that's ridiculous. Anyway, let's continue.
Our river path, we can look at adding any contributing springs. So for example,
okay, contributors, yeah.
There, or I might choose to have a bit more water flow coming from there. And then we can score and clean the rivers. What this does is it works out a more detailed path between the nodes that the river's going to take. And it also works out how much water is going to be passing through each point. So you see, if I click on this node here, we can see the size is 5. But if I go a little bit downstream, where there's going to be more rainwater collecting into the stream, the size is 17. And that will increase all the way down to...
Oh, so they got the size of the actual riverbed based on the altitude and how many contributors they are. Oh my gosh. How big are those rivers going to be down the mountain, right?
Where the river ends. Once we're happy with the river system as a whole, we can place the geometry modifiers. Now the first thing this is going to do is we've placed some brown decals down.
Okay, so it is going to be, so once they're happy, they're going to automatically modify the geometry of the terrain so that the water can smoothly flow downstream. Wonderful. That is really brilliant.
Show that the terrain has changed. And we've actually modified the terrain to show the path of the river. As you can see, if I just turn these off, as you can see, we've got a deep trench where the river is flowing,
okay, there. Okay, we can see the trench. Yeah, that's where the water is going to flow. So okay, so there's like the deep one, which is where the water is going to flow. Let's say there's not a lot of water, it's not raining a lot, so there's going to be a little stream, and maybe weather is going to be very chaotic, and that's where there's going to be the bigger riverbed. Okay, very smart, very smart. Oh, you want waterfalls like in the City of the Pool? Me too, Ted. That would be great. You know what I want? I want rain, and I want big weather, and I want the weather to affect those riverbeds. I want the rain, the weather to affect how those rivers are going to flow. But it looks like this is indeed the direction that we're going to.
Around the river. But usually rivers have water. So let's add in some water.
Yes.
Now obviously this is work in progress. This is just using the sea mesh. But it just...
Oh, yeah. It looks like the sea, but in... yeah, obviously, right.
Just to prove the concept that we can have water in the basis of our rivers. But it still doesn't look quite right. If you look at a river in the wild going through any ecosystem, whether it be a forest or some fields or a desert...
Well, it still looks better than in Star Wars Galaxies, so that's already good, right?
You'll notice that the terrain around it is different, and that's because water influences the ecosystem. We get more vegetation and growth around places where there are water. So in order to make this look as convincing as possible, we're going to experiment with adding more foliage and more ecosystem changes.
Oh yeah, so they're going to put all those little vegetations and rocks around the river to make it more realistic. Now, is this also going to be procedurally generated in the future, or they're not going to have to do it manually all the time, right?
Rivers. So this is just a programmer's take on this, and no artists have had any say in what I'm doing here. So by borrowing a slightly more lush preset from a different planet, we can see that we can create this really effective look around the rivers with far more trees and ground cover, just to really sell the idea that this is a river that has been here for thousands of years and is flowing through the hills of Microtech.
Okay, well, no, wait, Mr. Programmer here. That's impossible that this river has been flowing for thousands of years on Microtech, because Microtech has been terraformed. So, at most, a few hundred years, but not thousands of years. Let's remember that. When you are building Microtech, let's remember that. It cannot look that old.
So now that we've added in this ecosystem around the river, it really sells and looks like a river flowing through the hills of Microtech. This looks much more like something that's been here for thousands of years, instead of just a bit of water that's trickling.
And this is just the work of one engineer. The take of one person working on that technology. Can you imagine when all the Star Citizen artists are going to work there too? This is already looking quite... I would already be satisfied to have this in the verse right now. But that's not how it's going to be, right? They need to change the ocean shader for the river shader. Yeah, we're going to have different shaders, absolutely. Ozzy, they do not realize this game is a broken mess, says Ozzy. Come on, it's an alpha, it's not a game. It will improve. Come on, give it a chance.
Down some hills. Obviously, when the artists take a pass at this, they'll be able to get some much more suitable foliage and vegetation instead of having this awkward merge between snowy trees and beautiful lush foliage. But the fact that we've got the tools to do this, and we can do it procedurally just with a few clicks, means that these rivers could be cropping up soon on the planets.
Okay, now I like those rivers, but there's something that I want even more than rivers in the verse. I don't know what you guys think about in the chat down here. How about roads? Because they've been talking about roads for quite some time. I think the first time they were talking about roads was like in 2017. It was around the verse back in those days, and 2017 or 2018. Anyway, it was a couple of years ago. And we desperately need roads to go from point A to point B between different outposts, especially between different points of cities like maybe Microtech, or especially on Hurston 2. And because when you're using ground vehicles, you have to go between rocks, between fishes. It's just horrible. I don't. That's why I don't like using ground vehicles in the verse. Not a big fan. But if we had roads, especially when we're going to have various outposts, if we could have roads linking those different outposts, traveling on ground vehicles is going to be such a much better experience. We know that this is something that they want to have because we've seen that in Around the Verse a couple of years ago. If they can use that technology to also building roads, then it is going to have an even more significant impact for players who like to travel with ground vehicles, and it's also going to add more quality of life too. On Nature Hike, when VR is up and running. I don't know about this, Robert. Anyway, let's continue.
As a reminder, this is a working prototype, not a finished product, and these are all engineer art choices rather than artist art choices. I can imagine someone screaming at me for the fact that we've got some beautiful kind of tropical trees here versus some snowy pines in the backdrop. But the fact that we can modify the ecosystem around these rivers means that we're going to be able to create some really convincing looking ecosystems.
Very nice. Wow. And this is just a prototype. This is looking so cool. Love this. Say,
the terrain modification
golf clap here.
Just...
Good job. Good job. What was his name? Let's have a look again. That was his name here. I forgot. Oh no, I want to give him Little shout out here. Wilhan. Well, Wilhan, shout out here to you. You did a very good job. Anyway, that's all for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. What do you guys think about this tech? Let me know in the comments down below. Also, if you like this kind of content, you want to see daily Star Citizen content on the channel, don't forget to hit the like and the subscribe button. Any help over there is much appreciated. I'll see you guys tomorrow. This is the Eradicator. I'll see you guys later. This video is brought to you by the people who support this channel on Patreon and via the join button as well. Supporters of the channel get access to lots of cool perks such as access to my private Discord, your question answered in the show, you get to know when I'm going to play, and also you get to have a chance to influence the editorial line of the channel. Any help is appreciated, starts at just $1 a month. Thank you very much for watching. This is the Eradicator, and I'll see you guys later.